In the golden vaults of Hollywood's most treasured memories lies a single piece of paper that would change everything we thought we knew about kindness, friendship, and the true meaning of stardom. A handwritten letter from Audrey Hepburn to Gregory Peck, discovered decades after both legends had left us, reveals a secret so profound, so unexpectedly moving, that it redefines what it means to be human in an industry built on illusion. What Audrey wrote in her own elegant script wasn't just gratitude, it was a confession that would floor even the most cynical hearts. Margaret Thornfield had spent 37 years cataloging the personal effects of Hollywood's departed stars, but nothing had prepared her for what she found tucked inside Gregory Peck's leather-bound copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. It was a Tuesday morning in March 2018, the kind of dreary day that made the fluorescent lights of the Beverly Hills Estate Archive seem even more sterile than usual. As she carefully lifted the book's cover, a single sheet of cream-colored stationery fluttered to the floor like a fallen leaf from paradise itself. The letterhead was unmistakable. Miss Audrey Hepburn, embossed in delicate gold script. But it was the date that made Margaret's breath catch. December 15th, 1953. Just months after Roman Holiday had premiered, launching Audrey into the stratosphere of stardom and cementing her partnership with Gregory Peck as one of cinema's most beloved on-screen couples. Margaret's hands trembled as she lifted the letter to the light. The paper had aged the color of champagne, and Audrey's distinctive handwriting flowed across it like poetry made visible. But as Margaret began to read, her professional composure crumbled entirely. This wasn't just another fan letter or business correspondence. This was something so raw, so achingly personal, that she immediately understood why Gregory Peck had kept it hidden for decades, pressed between the pages of the very book that had defined his most iconic role. The letter began simply, "My dearest Gregory," but what followed would rewrite everything the world thought it knew about Audrey Hepburn's rise to fame and the true nature of kindness in Hollywood's most cutthroat era. Little did Margaret know, she was holding in her hands the key to understanding why Audrey Hepburn became not just a star, but a symbol of grace itself, and how one man's quiet act of strategic kindness had shaped the soul of cinema's most beloved icon. Rome, 1952. The Eternal City buzzed with post-war reconstruction and the intoxicating possibility of new beginnings. Against this backdrop of ancient stones and modern dreams, Paramount Pictures was preparing to film what would become one of Hollywood's most cherished romantic comedies. But director William Wyler faced a problem that kept him awake at night. He needed a princess, and princesses, it seemed, were in short supply. Gregory Peck had already been cast as the cynical American journalist Joe Bradley, bringing with him the gravitas of an established leading man who had conquered audiences' hearts in The Yearling and Gentleman's Agreement. At 36, Peck commanded both respect and top billing, his name alone enough to guarantee a film's success. But for the role of Princess Anne, Wyler needed magic, that indefinable quality that transforms mere acting into cinematic alchemy. Enter Audrey Hepburn, a 23-year-old chorus girl from Belgium, whose biggest claim to fame was a small role in a British comedy most Americans had never heard of. She was tall where Hollywood preferred petite, unconventional where the industry worshipped classic beauty, and completely unknown where star power ruled supreme. The audition tape that would later become legendary shows a nervous young woman in a simple black dress, her hair pulled back severely, speaking in accented English about her dreams of making it in pictures. But Gregory Peck saw something else entirely. While studio executives whispered about the risk of pairing an untested foreign actress with their valuable leading man, Peck watched Audrey's screen test with growing fascination. There was something in her eyes, a combination of vulnerability and strength, innocence and wisdom, that reminded him of the very best of human nature. In an industry where ego often trumped artistry, where established stars routinely demanded lesser actors be replaced with bigger names. Gregory Peck made a decision that would echo through decades of cinema history. He didn't just approve of Audrey's casting, he insisted upon it, knowing full well that her inexperience might overshadow his own performance. Little did anyone realize, this single act of professional generosity would birth a friendship that would redefine what it meant to be truly kind in Hollywood's golden age. The Roman holiday set was a masterclass in contradiction. Here was Hollywood's golden boy, Gregory Peck, at the height of his powers, standing opposite a virtual unknown who had never carried a major motion picture. The smart money said this was career suicide for Peck. Why share the spotlight when you could command it entirely? But those whispers revealed how little the industry understood about the kind of man Gregory Peck truly was. From the very first day of filming, crew members witnessed something extraordinary. Instead of retreating to his star trailer between takes, Peck remained on set, quietly coaching Audrey through her nerves. When she stumbled over dialogue, he didn't roll his eyes or check his watch. He asked Wyler to reset, claiming he needed to perfect his own performance. When Audrey's natural height made her tower over other actors in group scenes, Peck suggested camera angles that would showcase her elegance rather than diminish it. But it was the small, unseen moments that revealed Peck's true character. Craft services workers later recalled how he would ensure Audrey always had her favorite tea waiting in her dressing room. When Italian paparazzi swarmed the set, making Audrey visibly uncomfortable, Peck positioned himself as a human shield, diverting their attention with impromptu interviews about his own career. He insisted that her name appear above the title, alongside his own, a move that studio executives initially resisted but ultimately credited with the film's massive success. What appeared to be simple kindness was actually something far more sophisticated, emotional intelligence deployed as creative strategy. Peck understood what the studio bosses did not, that Audrey's authenticity was the film's secret weapon, and that authenticity could only flourish in an environment of trust and support. Every act of kindness, every moment of encouragement, every strategic deflection of industry pressure was an investment in the film's emotional core. Result was cinematic magic that still enchants audiences 70 years later. But for Audrey, those months in Rome represented something even more profound, a revelation about what it meant to be truly seen, truly valued, and truly supported in an industry notorious for its cruelty. The letter she would write months later captured this transformation, but also revealed the sophisticated understanding that would make her own career legendary. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can be is simply genuinely kind. The Trevi fountain sequence in Roman Holiday remains one of cinema's most iconic moments. But what audiences never knew was the terror behind Audrey's radiant smile. This was her first major scene, filmed just 3 days into production, and the weight of carrying a Hollywood picture pressed down on her shoulders like marble from the ancient city surrounding them. As she prepared to step into the fountain, wearing that famous white dress, her hands shook so violently that Wyler considered postponing the shoot. Gregory Peck, watching from behind the cameras, made a decision that would ripple through both their careers. He approached Wyler and quietly requested a private moment with Audrey. Leading her away from the crew's curious eyes, he spoke to her not as a seasoned actor to a newcomer, but as one human being to another, facing impossible odds. "You know what I see when I look at you?" he asked, his voice gentle but firm. "I see someone who understands that real beauty comes from being brave enough to be yourself." He paused, studying her face. "The camera loves truth, Audrey. And you have more truth in your little finger than most people have in their entire bodies." But then he shared something that would haunt Audrey for the rest of her life, the story of his own first major role, when legendary director John Ford had humiliated him in front of the entire cast and crew, calling him a pretty boy who would never amount to anything. The pain in Gregory's eyes as he recounted this memory was so raw that Audrey forgot her own fears entirely. Someone should have stood up for me that day, he continued. Someone should have reminded me that we're all just people trying to tell stories that matter. I can't change what happened to me, but I can make sure it never happens to you. When they returned to the set, something magical had transformed between them. The chemistry that would make Roman Holiday legendary wasn't just about romance, it was about two souls, recognizing each other across the vast loneliness that success can bring. As Audrey stepped into that fountain, her smile was no longer performance. It was pure gratitude, radiating from a heart that had just learned what it felt like to be truly protected by someone who had nothing to gain from her success, except the joy of watching another person flourish. Hollywood, in the 1950s, operated on unspoken hierarchies as rigid as any ancient caste system. Leading men didn't socialize with unknown actresses. Established stars didn't invite newcomers to industry parties. And they certainly didn't risk their own carefully cultivated images by publicly champ